Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to our second lesson on Islam. Since we have just arrived at the spot where Muhammad has moved from Mecca to Yathrib in the year 622 CE, I thought it would be a good place to also come to a Muslim community here in northern New Jersey. Put my mask on so that I can go outside for a little bit. I am here in Paterson, New Jersey on Main Street, where there's a large Muslim community. It's normally much busier here in this area. Maybe we can see some of the restaurants that are now closed over here. Well, since there's really not much to see, I think I'm gonna sit down there on a park bench over there and tell you a little bit more about Yathrib. It was located about 280 miles or 450 kilometers north of Mecca. Or if you were to take Petra, it would be about 550 miles, 890 kilometers to the south. Pretty much alone here right now. I will just take my mask off again, and it will be much better to talk like that with you all. Right here in this city of Yathrib, in the year 622, where Muhammad could build the first Muslim religious community and also build a political community. It is therefore also the year 1 in the Islamic calendar, because it is here that Islam really began as a faith group. It is in Yathrib that Muhammad built the first mosque, the Al-Masjid an-Nabawi, the mosque of the Prophet, in which Muhammad, Abu Bakr and Umar, we will hear those names later, are also buried. It is the second most important mosque in Islam these days. Yathrib is actually mentioned in the Quran in Surah 33, Ayah 13. Well, who lived already in Yathrib? As I said, there were 3 Jewish tribes and 2 tribes, Arab tribes, that had come from Yemen to settle in Yathrib. After a little while, those 2 Yemeni Arab tribes had battled and fought against the Jewish tribes and won, and had almost submitted the Jewish tribes into some form of slavery. And you can see that there was just conflict around in the city of Yathrib. While these conflicts were going on, early believers from Mecca had already also come to Yathrib to escape the persecution that they experienced under the tribe of the Quraysh in Mecca. So in the midst of all this conflict in Yathrib, some of the Quraysh believers that had escaped from Mecca suggested to the rest of the residents there that they should call on Muhammad to come as a disinterested party, as a mediator. Muhammad took the Yathribites up on that, and with this, as you saw in the video probably earlier, in a pretty difficult escape from Mecca, arrived in Yathrib. What Muhammad did in Yathrib is to write a constitution for the city of Yathrib. Although now we can start calling it Medina, because people started calling it the city of the Prophet. It is really the first Islamic written document. This was written a long time before the Quran, and it is a document that has directly the hand of Muhammad in it. And it is amazing how inclusive this constitution is. The way here to watch the short video on the Constitution of Medina. So I will walk a little bit further, go back into my car, and maybe park in front of one of the mosques here in Paterson to continue our talk. So instead of going to the mosque in Paterson, I came home to continue the video. I wonder what you thought about the Constitution of Medina. I thought it was pretty amazing how inclusive it was. That certainly propelled Muhammad to be the political leader of the city of Muhammad. He easily won over the citizens, and many of them actually converted also to the new religion that Muhammad was proclaiming and became Muslims. Here right now in the background, I put on a video of the masjid in Medina, the Prophet's Mosque. So that's going on in the background. I'm also prepared my Adhan app that indicates that we have Maghrib which is the sunset prayer, in 7 minutes and 47 seconds. When that goes off, then I will break the fast. I don't fast actually, haven't practiced it, but traditionally, if somebody were to fast during the month of Ramadan, they would have this ready. Some dates that they were using to break the fast with, and a little bit of water, sometimes also milk. So I have this ready, and while I'm taping this video, we can practically see what it's like to break the fast when it is the right time. But until then, let's continue, so that Muhammad was not only becoming the civil leader of Medina, but also was able to develop the spiritual community, what Muslims call the Ummah. Muslims believe that when you die, then you will have to account for your actions in this world, and there will be a final judgment day. And when it comes to the final judgment day, there are the rightful scribes, the Kiraman Katibin. Those are two angels, one sitting on your left shoulder and one sitting on your right shoulder. And those angels are recording all the things that you do. The angel on your right shoulder will write everything good down, all the good deeds. The angel on the left shoulder will record all the bad deeds that you do. There's a little bit of grace in there actually, because as soon as the angel on your right shoulder writes something down, it erases immediately 10 bad things on the left side. When you come to your moment of death and you are called to account for your deeds on earth, and the question is whether you're going to go to Jannah or to Jahannam, which is hell, then these angels are called by God to be the witnesses to how your life was. The good thing is that it doesn't depend on these items. It's not like you have a good account or bad account. Ultimately, it doesn't depend on whether your account is in the positive or in the negative, because ultimately it is still up to God to grant you access to Jannah, which is paradise, or to Jahannam, which is hell. Yes, the adhan just went off. It is the adhan, and for the breaking of the fast, it is now Maghrib. As the adhan is going on, you might actually silently speak it along with him, with the muezzin who is singing the adhan, the call to prayer. And with that, the adhan is over, and now Muslims can be together and drink some water, because there was no water drinking since early in the morning, since 4:30 in the morning, and eat a date. If you were to fast all day long, it is amazing how much energy just eating one date will quickly give you, and drinking water to hydrate again. So I was talking about how it is important to do things in the world according to your intentions and according to a pure heart, and that in the end you have to take an accounting for your life as to how you have lived it. and those two angels will record those things and be witnesses to God in the final judgment. And of course that determines then very much about how you act and how you live your life here on earth. There's a whole list of things that are haram: smoking, dancing, showing too much of your body, drinking alcohol, eating pork or other kind of animals that are deemed to be haram. Taking interest from someone is haram. So there's a whole list of things, and it's kind of like the kosher in Judaism, except that kosher is actually even more strict than what haram would be. And then there are those things that you should do, that are good, that are halal. You might have seen those carts around in New York City when you can buy things that are halal. Well, some food that is halal means that it's slaughtered in a way that gives honor to Allah. So the good things, the halal things, is definitely determined by the 5 pillars. The 5 pillars is really only a spiritual tenet of Sunni Islam, which are 90% of all Muslims in the world. And so we will be following mostly Sunni right now. I can tell you a little bit what the differences might be in Shia, but in Sunni you have the 5 pillars of Islam. And those 5 pillars are the Shahada, then the prayer, which is Salah, then comes the Zakat, which is charity giving, Siyam, which is fasting, and in the end, the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. And let's kind of take a little bit look at all of these things. So the Shahada is really the first thing that a Muslim would start. It's the confession of faith. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. That means I testify to that there is no God but God, and that Muhammad is his rightful messenger. Muslims really believe that everyone is already a Muslim in some way, somebody who is a person of the book. The people of the book are Jews and Christians who have already received the revelation, even though Muslims believe it was in the corrupt form. And so the people of the book are Muslims with a small m. They just don't know it yet. But then when they are actually making the Shahada, the confession of faith, then they are regarded as real Muslims, as the believer, the mu'minun, as a Muslim. That's the first pillar. And then from that moment on, or maybe even before already, you would practice your prayers. That's the second pillar. 5 prayers a day. They start early in the morning, right at the crack of dawn, not at sunrise, at the crack of dawn. That's when you have Fajr. Then after Fajr, it comes a long period of time, all the way up to noon, when you have Duhur. Then after Duhur comes the third prayer in mid-afternoon, that's Asr. Then comes the sunset prayer, Maghrib. And then comes the last prayer, the night prayer, Isha. Of course, the exact times when those prayers are changing along with the year. When the sun comes up early, the early prayer is much earlier, and the late prayer is much later. And when it's in the winter time, all of that kind of comes closer together. But think about it for a moment. It gives you a nice rhythm, at least in the old time of the world. Today, everything is rushed always, right? Everybody goes to work, everybody is rushed, and there is no rhythm to the day in some ways, especially when we have artificial lights. We kind of go into the night, and we don't really have a sense for time. But imagine yourself at Muhammad's time. There were no electrical lights, right? So at night it was dark, and maybe you had candles or some kind of a form way to make the night bright, but otherwise you would basically sleep at night. Or you would pray maybe, as Muhammad would oftentimes do. And so it makes sense that early in the morning at the crack of dawn, that's when the person would get up. Even before then, they would first wash themselves, called wudu, and do the first prayer before you even do anything. After the prayer, now you have time to work. The sun is up now, coming up, you had your breakfast, you can go to work, you can work all day long, pretty much many hours until noon. If you are in the desert in the Arabian Peninsula, when the sun is all the way up in the zenith, you would not want to work. So you stop your work at that point because it's too hot. You finish the workday with a prayer again. So this is the Duha prayer. You again wash your hands, the wudu, and you do your prayers, and then you are home. Maybe have lunch and rest a little bit. Then when the sun is about halfway down, you can see that on your shadow, the shadow that you cast. If the shadow and you are the same length, that means it's time for Asr, the afternoon prayer. Again, you wash yourself, you do wudu, you do your prayer at the mosque preferably, and then you go back and have a few more hours of work. From mid-afternoon all the way down to when the sun is setting. And at sunset, the adhan, you hear the adhan again being proclaimed from the mosque. You wrap everything up, you go to the mosque, you wash your hands with wudu again, not only hands, other things too. You do your prayer, and then you go home, you have dinner, you spend some time with your family, and then before you go to sleep, you will pray the Isha prayer before you rest. Gives the day a nice rhythm, right? And you basically always remember that you are under the guidance of God. Now, prayers should preferably be done in the mosque, at least by the men. They should gather in the mosque if they can. Of course, if you're not able to go to the mosque because it's too far away or something like that, then you can also pray at home. Or if you're out in the street, you can also pray out in the street. It's always important that you have a clean space. You may want to cut away here and watch the video on the Jummah prayer, which is Fridays at noon for Dhuhr. That is a prayer that's a little bit longer, where really everybody should try to come to the mosque, and the imam will give a sermon doing that. The third pillar is zakat, which is giving for charity. In other religions, in Judaism and Christianity, people give too. This is called the tithe. In Judaism and then in Christianity, one is supposed to give 10% of your income. In Islam, it's a little different. It's not 10% of your income. As a matter of fact, you don't even give on a regular basis. It's not like you're giving your offering in church every Sunday or so. You are actually waiting for your zakat to the end of the year. You will do your financial closing of the books, and you will see whether you have any profit. And then you would give 2.5% of your annual profit. That's what you will give to the ummah, to the community, through the mosque. If you have debt and you have a negative balance sheet, you will actually not have to give anything. You are actually the recipient of the zakat from other people. The idea here is that through the zakat, the community is equalized, that no one will be suffering because of the poverty, nor will anybody gain a lot of financial riches and leave other people in the dust. Connected with that is also the fact that interest is haram, right? You are not allowed to charge any interest. If somebody needs money and they need to borrow it from you, you are supposed to willingly give it to them without interest. And you will trust and need to trust that that person will be giving back the money to you as soon as he or she is able to. So a Muslim in these days has trouble when it comes to credit cards or to bank loans, like buying a house or a car. Someone who really practices Islam these days will try to save the money as much as possible and only spend what they have without having to take interest. So if it comes to buying a house, people would save up the money and pay it straight out, or go to a Muslim or Islamic lending company. It's okay to lend money or to borrow money, but it has to be without interest, so that no one will end up in destitute or in poverty. The fourth pillar then is Siyam, or fasting, which is especially now in the month of Ramadan the important thing to do. Fasting is all the way from the Fajr prayer early in the morning at the crack of dawn, all the way to Maghrib, which is the evening prayer when the sun sets. That's when, throughout that stretch of time, you will not eat anything or drink anything. You also supposed to abstain from other things. For example, you will not have any sexual relationships with your spouse. You will not engage in any kinds of fun things like going to the movies or any other thing. It is a time when you're supposed to be quiet in prayer and in spiritual activities. At night, what we just did with the breaking of the fast, when the iftar is given, then you can have a big meal, and Muslims oftentimes would invite people over to their house for iftar, for the breaking of the fast, or you might do it at the mosque and you have a community meal at the mosque. And then there are prayers all night long. Sometimes people will last all night to pray. Other people will party and eat as much as they can because the night is short, and Fajr will come soon and you will need to begin the fast again. And so it goes through the entire month of Ramadan. The significance of Ramadan is that it is the month in which it was believed that the Quran was first revealed to Muhammad in the cave of Hira. Nobody knows exactly what day it was, but if one had to guess, then it is the last 10 days of Ramadan, that it might be the right day. And then there is a special day right in there, maybe the 26th or 27th day. That might be the day. And it is a especially holy day in which Muslims pray even more throughout the night. Fasting can also be done on some other days. Sometimes Muslims fast in preparation of other holidays, but Ramadan is being broken with the holiday of Eid al-Fitr. That's the time when you finally can eat again during the day, when family gets together with nice new dresses. There is a special morning prayer, not only the early morning prayer, but there are prayers in the morning time. Usually you're not supposed to pray between Fajr and Dhuhr, but on Eid al-Fitr you can. There are special prayers at the mosque in the morning time because it's a holiday and you wouldn't be working anyway. So now you would pray during that day, and then you come over to your family, or bring your families to your house, or you go to friends over, and it's a big day of feasting, and usually takes about 2 or 3 days also. You may want to break here for a moment and watch the video on the Eid celebration of a student here in the United States. And then comes the last pillar, the 5th pillar, which is the Hajj. Every healthy person who can afford it is supposed to be going to the Hajj once in their lifetime. It is a pilgrimage to the big mosque, Masjid al-Haram in Mecca. It has to do with walking around the Kaaba several times, and takes also a trip to Mina, where there is an action where people throw pebbles at a pillar, as symbolizing that you're throwing rocks at the devil. You can break here too and watch the video on the Hajj, which can explain this much better than I can do on this video. At the end of the 10 days of Hajj, the second holiday in the Islamic calendar is celebrated. It is Eid al-Adha, the festival of the sacrifice. This one focuses on the story of Abraham sacrificing his son. In Muslim tradition, of course, it is Ishmael and not Isaac, although in the Quran it mentions Isaac, and in certain hadith Muhammad talks about Isaac being the sacrificed son, or in other places there is no name mentioned at all for which son is being sacrificed. But in Muslim tradition it is Ishmael that is being sacrificed. It's celebrated similar to Eid al-Fitr with special prayers in the morning, but in many places in the world people are sacrificing or slaughtering a sheep and have this as a festival meal for the family. Of course, in the United States that's not possible because you can't just slaughter an animal in the streets, so people buy their lamb during that day, but it is a big festival, sometimes probably even bigger than Eid al-Fitr. I told you that the 5 pillars are basically for Sunni Islam, but Shia Islam has 10 different pillars. Also the prayer, Salah and Siyam, the fasting is part of that too. Zakat is part of it, that's certainly no problem. But then there's something called Khums. It's an annual taxation of 1/5 or 20% of the gains that year, which goes above and beyond the Zakat. The Hajj is also part of that, so that's no problem. Then the 6th pillar here is the Jihad. And we should talk about that for a moment, what Jihad really is. Most of us have heard the term in connection with holy war. When you see extremist groups or terrorist groups, they call a jihad really to against other people, especially infidels or non-believers. And it's connected with holy war. But that's actually not at all what jihad is supposed to be. The word itself means struggle. And it's really the struggle within several realms. The inner realm, then the struggle within the Muslim community, and then there would be a struggle within the community at large, where you have people of other faiths as well. The inner struggle, the inner jihad, is something that a person should go through each and every day. It has to do whether you're practicing things out of a good intention, that you are actually doing things out of the goodness of your heart or with good intentions in your heart. It also is the struggle of keeping the 5 pillars, for example. If the Adhan goes off at 4:30 in the morning and you're supposed to get up and make wudu, wash yourself, and then do your morning prayer, that might be a little bit of a tough thing. You might say, oh, I just want to turn around and sleep a little bit longer. But your inner jihad is know that you will get up and that you will do your prayers and that you will keep up with your obligations for your faith. It might also be the struggle about zakat, giving of your money or giving things away. That's the jihad, the inner jihad. Then there's the jihad within the community of Muslims. It is the struggle or strive for justice within one another, and that one struggles with those that you have wronged. And then there is and kind of in the same vein, is the struggle within the larger community, that together with other people you also struggle for justice, that you strive for justice, so that this society is a good society. That jihad is connected with war is really also extreme reading of certain passages in the Quran and in Hadith that might lead some extreme forms of Islam to engage in war. It is never allowed to kill, especially not people from the own community. The Quran forbids that greatly. And so when there are terrorists like those who attacked the World Trade Center on 9/11, killed 3,000 people in those towers, including also Muslims, it would have been regarded as an absolute abomination by most Muslims in the world. Sometimes people wonder, why didn't Muslims make an official statement and rejecting the actions of the jihadists or terrorists? Well, the question is, who is supposed to do that? The Church, the Catholic Church, has the Pope who can make statements on behalf of all the Church. But there is no such thing within Islam. Islam is organized in small communities. Every masjid or every mosque is independent. And there is really no one who is above everybody else who could make a statement on behalf of all Muslims. And so it's only possible that maybe sometimes an imam here in the local community or an imam there would make efforts to reject certain actions of extremist groups. But it's hard to do this as a total of the Muslim community. You may want to cut away too and watch the video on the jihad at this moment. Before we move on from here, I wanted to also bring to the discussion the head coverings for women. In many different Muslim cultures, this is seen very differently. Many people say it is up to the woman. She is not compelled to wear a headscarf. or whatever form that might take, whether it's a niqab or hijab or a khimar, whatever it might be. But watch the next two videos. They show two different points of view. One that definitely advocates that women should wear a head covering, and the other one puts it into perspective more as to what it might have meant. One point of view from a man, one point of view from a woman. So cut away and watch those two videos, and then you can come back again. Let me just conclude by bringing the history of Muhammad a little bit further. After having built the community in Medina, there were three different battles between the Muslims in Medina and the Quraysh from Mecca. In the end, in the year 630 CE, Muhammad also advanced on the city of Mecca to liberate the Kaaba and fought a battle to either convert the Quraysh or get them out of Mecca, so that the Kaaba was now made the main sanctuary in which Islam would practice. Muhammad was able to live another 2 years residing in Mecca, in the newly Muslim city of Mecca, and he gave a long speech at the end of his life to say farewell before he died, ultimately in Medina, where he is then buried within the mosque of the Prophet in Medina. I will stop here so that next time, in our last session, we can talk about what happens after the death of Muhammad. We will talk about where the split between Sunni and Shia comes from, and how Islam expanded throughout the world. We will then conclude also with some understanding of where the extremist groups come from, like Al-Qaeda or ISIS, and where all that comes from. And so, Assalamu alaikum, until next time.